Shift Up, the developer for Stellar Blade, has rejected Blackrock. At least it's canceling its initial public offering to the Korean stock exchange, which would open it up to investors and investment banks like Blackrock and Vanguard that have their own agenda when it comes to the entertainment industry, and it mostly focuses on censoring Asian games. And I think this is the thing that we've been seeing within the video game development sphere for the past few years, where a lot of subjects for entertainment within the Asian video game development sphere have been censored, canceled, or reworked to be made for modern Western audiences. And Stellar Blade was going in that direction with a lot of the censorship that arrived with the game upon its initial release, where we had all these outfits that we saw within the commercials for this game showing that it was going to a more attractive and appealing look, and some of those outfits were censored, changed, and altered to be more pleasing for the broader base investors that want more censorship within the video game industry. I think that is what we were seeing with Stellar Blade and some of their other products like Nikke, a mobile game that provides over 90% of the revenue for Shift Up, and they applied censorship to that game as well, and people were complaining about the censorship within Nikke, and that was a cause of concern for a lot of people when it came to Shift Up becoming a publicly traded games developer in the stock exchange, because we've seen this happen before many times with other games publishers, where they become a publicly traded entity with board of director members, with influences from investment banks that want certain people in the board, certain programs started to reflect certain attitudes and progressive social political agendas that need to be implemented in the company. We see this with ESG governance scores that are applied to companies. These are the things that it would have to follow if it was a publicly traded stock that could be invested by investment banks like BlackRock, like Vanguard. I think with this cancellation of their IPO, many people are giving different excuses for it. This is a positive thing. You can see this in this article here, where Shift Up postpones its IPO with its overdependence on Nikke, raising concerns about its sustainability. And this is the excuse that we're seeing online. I think it's a valid excuse, but we've seen other companies that are overly dependent on one product opening up to initial public offerings on the stock exchange. So I think this is probably an excuse for them backing out of this initial public offering, because we've seen them change their tune when it comes to the games that they're producing. Nikke is back to being uncensored, more attractive outfits are being displayed for that game. We can see this happening with Nikke. It's a game that is still going back to its roots now, bringing back some of the outfits people like. And I think this is the thing that we're seeing with the game itself. It is being produced in such a way where they're turning their back in the ideology that would be imposed on them if they became a publicly traded company. I think that's what we're seeing with Nikke and with Stellar Blade as well. I think that is the purpose that this company Shift Up is pulling out of the stock market, because these influences from outside companies have deteriorated some of their products, certainly in some ways. Of course, Stellar Blade is still a great game. It's still a game that people love and enjoy, are participating in and including it in their libraries and selling it to other people and convincing other people to play. But I think that's the thing that people are frustrated with some of these publicly traded developers right now, because they follow the party line when it comes to these political activist messaging. And I think they saw that it was annoying, and they knew if they continued on, this game might be a dead game walking, because it would have to follow these publicly traded principles that are being enforced throughout the global stock exchange right now. And I think Korea is slightly different. It's stock exchange. It doesn't have that heavy influence of ESG, but it does say that in some of its bylines and some of the government issued information about the stock market, it kind of leans in that direction, because that is a global narrative that is being put in place that a lot of companies, a lot of stock exchanges are now trying to follow in the footsteps of American stock exchange when it comes to these ESG DEI principles. And I think that will be reflective on the game itself. And I think we already saw a product of that with Stellar Blade, and I don't think anyone really wants to see that anymore. People just want to see a cool game being made by focused developers that are not holding back in their continued pursuit of excellence. And I think that's the case with Stellar Blade. That's what I'm hoping for the future of Stellar Blade, and I think that's what I'm hoping for the overall situation with this cancellation or postponement of the IPO, where people feel like this is a showing that they have an overdependence on one product. But we've seen other IPOs for other companies that were overdependent on one product for their source of income and revenue. And I think with the success of Stellar Blade, I think this is showing that they could go forward, but they're pushing back because they feel like, okay, maybe this is not what we want. We got these influences that are hindered our game to some extent, so maybe we should reorient what we're doing right now. And I think that's the focus that we're seeing with Shift Up and Stellar Blade. People have other concerns with the company itself, but I think either way, this is a positive outcome for the game players. We don't want Shift Up to become a publicly traded stock, because that means people that hate gaming, that are not interested in gaming, are going to get involved. When a developer becomes public, they are easily influenced by the money that they're getting. And I think even the developer for Stellar Blade, he will be easily influenced by the amount of money that's coming in. This is something I was never a fan of. I always looked at this with a bit of doom, but Shift Up is still doing good things. They're developing multiple games. They're making profit. They're making money. And I think that's what we could expect in the future for Shift Up if it doesn't open up to the stock exchange and if it doesn't have an IPO. So I'm hyped that this was postponed. Hopefully it is canceled eventually. I doubt it though, but whatever happens in the future, I'm going to stand by the side of Shift Up, hoping they don't change their style for anyone, especially for Western companies, because we already saw what happened with Black Myth Wukong and Sweet Baby Inc. that try to influence the game in a negative way towards these progressive social standards. And I'm just glad a lot of companies are backing away from that. And I'm thinking this may be a sign that Shift Up is doing the same. They're backing away from this overall thought process that is leading to a bad end result for their overall gaming empire that they're trying to build upon. And I think seeing some of the things they're bringing back to Nikkei and other platforms like Stellar Blade, where we get some of these uncensored outfits back, I'm thinking they're leaning towards, okay, let's back away, let's see what we can do without becoming a publicly traded company. And if we feel more successful private, we'll stay private. And I'm thinking that may be the case. Hopefully that's the case. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll be greedy. That's just the world we live in. Everyone is greedy, so that might be the case as well. But you leave your thoughts. Tell me what you think about Shift Up, the developer, kind of backing away from the stock exchange and backing away from Blackrock and all that investment money that would poison the well of this video game developer. And I'm glad they're backing away from it. But you tell me if you think this is a positive or good thing. I'd like to hear your thoughts. This is Wagner Knows Why. Catch you next time.